You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
It is 5:33 p.m. and I'd like to bring the May 8th meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners to order. Do I have an approval of the minutes from April 10th?
I'll make a
meeting?
motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, report of the chief.
All right, good evening, everyone. As far as the report of the chief, as I mentioned last commission meeting, our crime analyst, Dominique Vergolta, has moved on, and I had promised you that we would fill her shoes and do our best to present the outstanding reports that she provides, and unfortunately we fell a little short of that. So what I did provide you with is just a monthly NIBRS statistic report that captures a vast majority of what she had included in her report, but we weren't able to reproduce it. I wasn't confident we could accurately reproduce it from the table she pulls from, so thus I'll give you a quick overview. Where we're at, you will see I did put a little mark near some of the ones that are up. Last month, and we continue to see it, we've had a couple bad nights where multiple cars were stolen. We're seeing, again, it's open in the media about some of the Kias. That's not necessarily always our issue. It's the cars that are unlocked with the keys in them. And we did see a spike. As you see, we jumped from 3 that we had in March, which is good. But we jumped up to 13 last month.
Wow.
Again,
That's a huge increase.
Yep, and what we're seeing is what we've seen for a long time is it's, Midnights is out there. They've engaged in some strategies, and it's hit or miss. They'll hit Madison one night, and then, 2 nights later they're Branford, then they're off into Wallingford, Southington.
That even makes this worse. I mean, they're not here every night for the month.
Yeah,
Right?
and we have analyzed it, from a crime prevention strategy of can we predict, and Dominique took all the data, and it was hard, but there were some strategies that Midnight's officers were doing, but even with that, we have to, advise the public that you have to lock the cars. The other thing that you're finding with these, not only do you have to, go through your insurance, but when we do recover these vehicles, they either have bullet holes in them, or they're crashed, or they're used in crimes, and they're being held for processing by other departments. So if your vehicle is stolen, we're averaging about a 3-day recovery. That's about our norm of when these vehicles get located. They get located in the Bronx, New York. I don't know if I mentioned at our last commission meeting, but one of our stolen vehicles that was from the Limewood area was found in the Bronx filled with bullet holes, and one of the offenders was a homicide victim. So we're finding them in Waterbury, we're finding them in New Haven, we're finding them in New York. Some of it, there's a few suspects that have been in town. One of them's incarcerated, and one of them is deceased. So this is something that is all over the map. So it's very hard to pinpoint and accurately go after.
So, and these thefts are over and above the break-ins in cars as well, right?
Yeah, so there's 2 categories. There's larceny from a vehicle, or theft from a vehicle, and then there's the catalytic converters, which they've kind of leveled off, and those are also sporadic.
Right. Okay.
With that,
The other one is the disorderly conduct. That went up. Is that because it's approaching summer?
could be, that's all encompassing charge. That's a very, that's kind of like people behaving badly charge. So that could be they're intoxicated, they're fighting, they're arguing, so that's one of the categories that, you would see a little jump as the weather gets better. Along the lines, we did have a robbery back on April 22nd at the Branford Auto. A lone subject came in with a mask and a knife and robbed the clerk there. Detectives are actively working that case, and they are making some headway on that. Also on April 28th, we assisted the Madison Police Department with an armed robbery. This one made the news. It was I believe it was a high-end watch shop.
Branford resident?
Yes. They released some video and some pictures. Our detectives and officers immediately identified the suspect. They set up some surveillance, did a really good job working with Madison. They stopped the suspect. They ended up making an arrest and led to some search warrants, and that was, I believe it was Officer Burkhart, Officer Luzzy, and the Detective Bureau. So they did a nice job with that. Another continued issue that you hear me talk about, and this is really disheartening and something that is continuing, the purse snatching at the gas pumps. This is ongoing. It's in every municipality. I can tell you how it shakes out. It's a stolen car, occupied multiple times. They're going in the passenger side, grabbing the purse as the person goes around, or they're opening up the driver's door when the person is going to pay or going to pump. There have been a few cases, I don't necessarily know if any of them are directly with ours, where the key fob in which you put in your pants, if you're pumping the gas, puts you in proximity of the vehicle. So even if you lock the vehicle, ours in particular, there's one on video, it's quick. She didn't even know. She's like playing with the pump and boom, boom, they're in and out. Some of ours have been at the Stop and Shop. And unfortunately today at 3:45, we had one at Stop and Shop Gas. A stolen vehicle. And they also hit Southington 30 minutes prior to us. So this is something that, we kicked some ideas around. It's sad to say, but if you go some places, you'll see a placard right on the pump. Please lock your vehicle while you're pumping. So we're going to approach a few of our locations in town and try that.
Chief, are you saying, like, I always lock my car. I leave Lucy in the car, but I take the key. I lock the car. But are you saying that because I have a key fob, somebody could come the passenger door and unlock it just by clicking on it?
If they pull it, if you're in close proximity, there's certain vehicles that will allow that to happen.
It'll unlock it.
I did not.
Well,
know
then-
that either.
You have to check your car and see.
So,
Well, I think if you
Because
have
if
a
I
key,
lock mine using the key fob, it won't, you can't do it by touching the handle. It won't open.
not even if you're next to the car?
Right. Because I lock it on the key fob.
That's what I do.
So
too.
some vehicles.
Oh,
that
so I
works, but
should
others
lock it
may
on
not.
my key fob,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Because
so-
I've been just locking it on the door, but. okay.
some people now tap to pay with their card or their phone or the credit card. Your license and a credit card, if you're going to go out for a day of shopping and do those things, you're probably better off putting it in the trunk and just grabbing what you need, because it is quick. And again, there is another case that's tied to ours today, which maybe I can report back to next month, but in Southington, and it's not good. Like, we've seen elderly people get knocked down. So you're pumping gas, be mindful. That's where the majority of ours are coming from. Or we're seeing this supermarket, you're loading the groceries into the car. That's another one of our Stop and Shop ones. They're loading the groceries in the car, it's in the cart, they pull up, they grab it, they go. So we'll keep trying to attack that, but this is something that we need to be mindful. Internally, as far as the department, the risk protection orders, which we've spoken about, and it's really having an impact on our not only our overtime budget because of the subpoenas and the call-ins for the officers to present to the prosecutor and to the judge. We are probably, John, we're probably at 100, probably right around there.
Yeah, definitely.
And today alone, we had 4 officers. One was in Waterbury Court, and some were down at New Haven Court at different phases of the RPO process. It has gotten to the point for us that something we initially had talked about, which we backed off on, was pulling an officer from the patrol division and assigning that officer to records to be our RPO coordinator to try to stop some of the order-ins when the officers have to go in to present and for the subpoenas. It's at that point now where we have to do that. So starting, I believe, the 14th, Michael Amaranti from our patrol division, who is one of our court liaison officers, will be assigned full-time to the records division to intake RPOs, review them, and help present them to cut down on the many officers. So just to kind of give you a context of what happens, so today our officer comes in on overtime, drives to Waterbury for a hearing in which the person may or may not show up. So we have travel time, they sit and wait for a couple hours, and all our data that we have is very few of the subjects of the RPOs are showing up for the hearings, but we're still getting subpoenaed. And if the officer's subpoenaed on his day off, his or her day off, it's 8 hours overtime. But you may not want to work that overtime because it's your day off and you have childcare issues, but it's a subpoena. So we're hoping that this one can help streamline it a little bit and maybe stop some of the impact. It's not going to rectify all the issues. And I'll take you back to our budget. As you know, this coming fiscal year, I did transfer, I believe it was $20,000 or $30,000 out of our vacation overtime line into our regular overtime line. I don't think we're going to meet the mark this budget with our overtime. We haven't did the calculation in a while, but last we did it, we were over 30,000 already. And that's not with comp time. They took the payment versus the comp time. So big impact. We do a lot. We have a lot of facilities here in town that call on us, that require us to do the RPOs. We have some other locations, some of the hotels that we deal with the people. So some of these subjects of the RPOs aren't always Branford residents.
So the officers get subpoenaed, but the individual,
They have a hearing date and they're notified.
and they don't get subpoenaed?
Some of them don't show up, some of them,
They don't show up.
And so what happens when they don't show up?
they put, in ours, they put a lot of these status of these orders on hold, or they have the prohibition for the weapons entered. And, so there's different categories, but,
Yeah.
Quite frankly, with some of the people, if they're in a mental health crisis,
Yeah.
they may not,
So who's the backup when this officer has a day off or a vacation?
So Lieutenant Crandall will oversee right now, our record staff keeps track of all our RPOs, where they are in the process. They do some documentation for us. What Officer Amaranti will be doing is he'll be applying for these RPOs as much as he can. But we feel that he's also going to get hit to a point where he's either testifying or going to a subpoena and he's presenting, and we're going to get where we're still going to have to go to the body of the patrol
Yeah.
officers.
Okay.
We're committed to it. When the legislative change came out, the deputy looked at best practices, came up with a policy. And quite frankly, our policy now is we will present more often than not. If it's questionable, we're going to present to have it looked at and get a second opinion. With that said, that's adding to it, but I would rather do it that way. So we
Yeah.
have a very robust policy and we're doing it. Also kind of related into the records division, the Freedom of Information requests, they continue to come in. We do have one part-time position that we're trying to fill to help us with the FOI requests and the backlog of those. We are still leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of public agencies with our turnaround time, but we are experiencing significant delays. A lot of it's court-driven with the body-worn camera that we have to prepare for court for our state's attorney's office, but then we're getting it on the private side from attorneys regarding accidents. So we're trying to get at that backlog, but that's something that continues. As far as training, some really good training last week. Officer Burkhart and Officer Morgan, they were tasked with putting together some tactical training and some active shooter training in partnership with our fire department with some stop to bleed and some critical life-saving skills. They've been at it last week. They start up again tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, and that'll get the whole department through. You know that they put their heart and soul into it when officers come back and they sit in roll call and say, fantastic training, fantastic training.
Good.
A lot of time, a lot of effort, but that's ongoing. Previous to that, we had firearms training. Got a good chunk of the department that was due for that through. And again, so there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that, but we are committed to keeping with a very good training regimen. And I'm excited. We're gonna go by tomorrow, Wednesday, for the training. I'm excited to see it. But
What's the frequency for firearm training?
so you have to go within your certification period within 3 years, and I believe it's like 2 within there. The state mandated are the minimum, and it's not. But so when you think of firearms training, what we do is we do the virtual training, the simulator training. Then we do hopefully some what we call simunition training, which is what part of this active shooter was. It's the marking cartridges, so the gun's converted into it'll fire, but it shoots a marking cartridge, which hits the officer. They wear protective gear, kind of simulates as much as you could possibly the real world. So when I think of firearms, we think of proficiency, but we also think about shoot, don't shoot decision making, kind of get their reflexes and their thought process, and that's where the simulator comes in. So for us, that's ongoing. That's we're almost to the point where we're quarterly with Virtua, shoot, don't shoot, firearms, traditional firearms on the range, which by the way, they've really revamped now. It's more moving and more physically demanding in the shooting. So it's ongoing for us.
So
What about those things that you were talking about last month?
retrofitting the firearms.
Yeah.
Perfect segue. You guys, did you look at my notes?
I listen.
Hey, look.
Pay attention.
So
That's what I had to know.
Oh.
Next.
you're looking over my shoulder, I think. Perfect segue. So what happened with that is we did transfer I did get the approval from the commission for the money for the expenditure. We're going to have to go out to bid because the vendor we were dealing with, there was no state contracts available. So by our purchasing requirements, we exceeded $12,500. And the best way to address that is just to go out to bid. I did receive the bid that was drafted this morning. I'll get that over to purchasing and we'll get that out on the market for bidders. So not a big deal, a little bit. It's going to take a little more time, but not a problem. Along the lines of equipment, we still have a few cars that are up at our supplier, MHQ. We're still waiting for them. Again, we're still trying to play catch up with the availability issues that we've seen over the past couple of years. And then now everyone's trying to get in line. So we do have a few more cars that are going to come in, hopefully, by the summer. And then lastly, as far as I mentioned, Dominique's position, the crime analyst position, that is out on Indeed. It's out on the market. We will try to move that along as fast as we can. Again, we wished her well, and I was a little confident to say that we'll all pick up a part of her job, and we're trying, but we are feeling the impact. So I appreciate your understanding as we move forward with this report, but I promise next month we'll try to get back on track. But with that, I'll turn it over for the deputy. He has some news on our hiring and updates on the building.
So we're currently running a recruitment process for this 2023 effort. We had a total of 69 applicants. Just like all PDs across the state, we are seeing a reduced number of applicants. For example, in 2019, we had 193 applicants. Tested again in 2021, where we had 137 applicants. 2022, we tested for 90 applicants, and so now we're at 69 applicants. 47 of the 69 applicants either failed the physical agility, the written exam, the oral board process, or they didn't attend one of those phases, which would have eliminated them from the process. The remaining 22 applicants were interviewed last week by we call it a chief's interview. That panel includes the chief, myself, Captain Galdenzi, Lieutenant Carangelo. We're seeing that many of those 22 applicants are already in other processes with multiple towns, so we're all fighting for those applicants. We did take the top 6 candidates into the background investigation phase as of last week. Today's Monday morning. Our top 2 candidates are out. One has already failed, and one withdrew for another opportunity. So 4 continue in that process. So we do hope to present 2 candidates to the commission in June. We have 2 seats in a July academy, and we're hoping for the best. So stay tuned for that update we'll have for you next month, and we'll see where we're at and if we can make it through the vetting process to the July academy. We still have polygraphs, psychological testing, medical testing, background investigations. So it'll be very.
So you'll have a couple to present by June?
Well, we hope to.
God willing, and
As long as they stay in the
Yeah, if they
process.
stay in the process. But there's still quite a few hurdles. So we'd be fortunate to present 2 in June and have them in time for the July seats. So that's all I have for hiring. I can give you a building update. On April 5th, we had a pre-construction meeting kickoff that included the Downs team and also our project architect, Brian Humes. We discussed establishing pre-construction schedule for documents. That includes the design development documents and the construction documents. We discussed the roles of the Downs employees on the project, the status of the current design development phase, where Humes outlined where his firm was within the process of hiring sub-consultants for the business, for the project. Then we met again on April 26th, where we reviewed schematic design documents. We walked through the building with Downs regarding the scope of the project so their employees could see the building. So right now we're in the process of scheduling coring of the slab to determine the status of the vapor barrier, which we discussed as part of their forensic analysis of the project, and to make sure that basically we're going to be able to fix the problem properly and alleviate the moisture issues downstairs.
I understand we have a meeting on the 15th.
We don't have one with the Public Building Commission. There's nothing for the agenda for the 15th.
I was going to say, I thought.
Yeah, we were
I'm
hoping to
gonna
have
go
an
through that
update.
presentation,
The architect is out of state, so we're going to hold off until no meeting for that. We're going to hold off until next month for the update.
And then we hope to have 2 possible, entry-level officers for presentation in June, but then we also have a known vacancy in October. So we're also, looking at that. So there's really 3. And I think we were joking this morning, the deputy logged in and I said, you wishful thinking that there's a certified officer jumping in, and no, there's nothing in there. So again, like I said, that's dried up too. So 2 that we have to get ready for July, 1 for October. Other than that, the correspondence, we have a letter from a Branford resident wanting to thank Deputy Chief Alves and Officer Campanelli and Officer Richardson. Their mother-in-law suffered a medical event, and they want to thank us for their help during that time.
Nice.
Received a letter regarding Detective Lieutenant Dominic Eula. He conducted some ALIS training or active shooter training, kind of the old, run, hide, fight for the Blackstone Library. He also took some time to address some safety tips and some security issues that they wanted to go over, and received a letter thanking him for his time. Lieutenant Phil Ramey assisted the town of Orange with a sergeant's panel, a letter from South Central Criminal Justice thanking him for that. And Sergeant Carney We got a letter addressed to her thanking Officers Eardos and Luzzy with a civil issue that somebody had, and those officers went and helped her. Said your two officers could not have been kinder and more diligent. They wanted to be recognized and thank us for that. And then here's one, and this is from one of the victims of the stolen purse snatching and Stop and Shop. One of the officers was Officer Ken Eardos. So what sometimes happens is they take the purse, they go through it, they'll dump it on the side of the road or on the highway. And there's still, valuables that can be helpful. So they went up on the highway and they were able to retrieve some of her items and her pocketbook from the side of the highway. They tried their best to comfort her, and she said that they were very supportive and at one point even made me laugh to lighten up the situation. So, kudos to them. But this one was, again, a stolen car. And it ties into those other ones. And
This
then
one that you just read was a stolen car?
the suspects,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, the perpetrators, that was one of the ones.
Okay.
And then we have just a letter for Danielle, the social worker. They're grateful for who you are and the help and support that they had. Again, she continues to make a huge impact on our department and the service that we're able to provide. So with that, that's all we have, unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you. You want to move on to traffic requests?
Sure.
Patty?
Yep. Okay, the first request was for a stop sign northbound on O'Neill Lane on Flat Rock Road. And it is the traffic committee's recommendation that this be approved at this meeting. So is there a motion to approve?
Make motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next one was just an update on the request for no parking signs on the eastern side of North Harbor Street. We are setting up a meeting. Lieutenant Ramey is setting up a meeting with the manager of the Glass Works to discuss no parking on both sides of the street for 4 parking spaces on each side to give the houses clear exit and entry into their driveway. So there's really no action was taken. Request for a crosswalk on Indian Neck and South Monowee Street. This has come up before. We don't know for certain if this was actually presented to the state, so Lieutenant Ramey is going to follow up with the state DOT this month, so there's really no action there. Request for a solar-powered flashing stop sign at the intersection of Eastwood Drive and Leeds Island Road. This came in late, and we didn't have time to go out and actually look at it, so it was no action until it was deferred till next month. Request for further discussion on speed issues in Pawson Park. The traffic feasibility report was handed out to the residents of Pawson Park today, and we did have a mild discussion. No decisions were made. The plan is to review the feasibility report and then discuss it at next month's meeting. And that's it.
Okay. There are no comments here, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.